So here we have a kind of overview of post-its here and a brainstorming of the what happened. And I've broken it down into what happened day one, what happened day two, and so on. So when I walked in the door, there was a beautiful mindfulness poem being delivered by Kathleen. So it was my first introduction to the course, which was right up my street, and I instantly felt comfortable. We then went on to look at the concerns that people had. What is creativity? Who is creative? What helps creativity? What stops creativity? We did a Lego exercise. Then people were brought downstairs and we did object in the middle of the room, which was like an icebreaker, which I thought was quite nice and different way of doing icebreakers. I got to know people's interests, their genuine interests, what they were interested in. We did a phone box challenge, and I volunteered to do the mindfulness the next day. And that's what happened in day one. And day two, we went on and I did the mindfulness movement, which I thoroughly enjoyed, and I hope others did too. I find it a great form of motivation to get up and moving and to get energy in our bodies so we can do things. We sat and we listened to the theories, Tuckman and Jenkin theories, the storming, forming, norming, performing and adjourning, and also the 6 hats, which I actually became quite interested in. And then we spoke about Belbin, and subsequently we did the Belbin assessment online, and I came out as 100% coordinator, which I knew rings home for me. And swiftly underneath that, it was the team working, which I also knew I'm quite strong in. And surprisingly enough, I got a decent result in the planter, which I was happy about, but also actually fairly surprised, in around the mid-40s. So, because when I started this course, I was like, I don't think I'm the most creative person, but I think subsequently that has changed. We did the marshmallows, we did the blessing in disguise, which video piece, and the marshmallow piece I suppose helped with prototyping, and I'll go into more detail in all of these in the next section. In day 3, what happened? We looked at design thinking. I did some more mindfulness movements. We did the empathy piece. We made a hat for Irene. We did the crazy contraption, the coffee machine, umbrella. We talked about ideation, watched a video on the stages. And we did some body storming, user journey map, the 5 stages of design thinking. I think we got introduced to them through the PowerPoint presentations and the videos, although we had been doing them in the previous classes. So the empathy, define, ideate, prototype and pitching. And then which went on to establish the point of view statement, which generally happens in the defining period, and then to think of your big ideas and your kind of practical ideas as well, having say like two to 3 big ideas and then some more practical ideas. And we came up with Poppy the umbrella, and we had a prototype and stood up in front and did the pitch. The group did the pitch. And then day 4, what happened? So we were out in Dublin Airport. Some people, half the class were in the jury building and the other half were in Dublin Airport. I got the opportunity to go behind the scenes with one of the staff members of Dublin Airport, and to view what it was like in the baggage area. So there we were doing a lot of body storming. Unfortunately we weren't permitted to talk to the passengers, but it still was good in that we would observe how people were behaving, how staff were behaving, observing the signage that was both in T1 and T2, and the challenge there was, how would you get to and from Dublin Airport if you could not drive? So we had, and the other groups were doing some body storming out the front at arrivals, and seeing how people were managing after arriving in Dublin and getting their what form of transport they were taking. We looked at the journey mapping, and then we went back to the jury building. I put it upside down because by the time I got back to the jury building, I was so exhausted and so tired I could barely speak. I felt like I couldn't give anything to the group, but I had a cup of tea. Rita said, sit and have a cup of tea. I had a cup of tea, and once I had my lunch I felt absolutely fine, and I got really into it. I was able to get into the defining stages, the ideating, the pitching and the prototyping. I felt like I was good in the group there, helping to move things along, but as I say, I'll get more into that now. In day 5 we had talked about the reflection piece on all the stages of the design thinking, so the empathy, defining, ideate, prototyping and pitching. It was good to hear all the groups and their thoughts on that. There was a brief on the assignment was given. We went outside and there was a lovely creative walk is what I'm calling it, and that was absolutely beautiful, to have that time to be able to do that and take your head out of the work and then come back into it, kind of feeling refreshed. We had an accountability buddy, which I thought was really good. So we are grouping up with that grouping up with that person to see how things are and how we're getting on. We were given a piece to solve a problem through the newspaper, like opportunity recognition, and we as a group came up with a thing called Shock Theatre Presents. Which I felt was very good. We had a problem with like health and safety on farmyards, and how to educate farmers in the importance of being health and safety conscious on the farmyard through theatre. And then we were given a book. I've got the book Big Magic, which I have been reading, which I've actually really, really enjoying it. I'm still getting through that. And then I'll go on now to, so the way I did it was mind mapping here. And I know there's a lot to take in, so I probably won't get to talk all of what's here in front of me, but you will get to read it. So basically, so what is the meaning of this for me? So what have I learnt, and what insights have there been, and so what would I do or need to know about this? So I suppose on day 1 I felt there was a great sense of openness and sharing, and people were being I suppose there was a sense of being allowed to make mistakes. The whole facilitation of the concerns and what is creativity and who is creative and what helps creativity. I felt that was an excellent exercise in easing everybody's nerves, because for me, I did think I said, I'm not the most creative person. I shy away from it. People that are creative, I kind of can irritate me a little bit, and I really did this course because I wanted to challenge that, and I wanted to I wanted to see, well, can I be more creative? So I think definitely by doing the course in day 1, it gave me great hope. I did feel uncomfortable at times. I think there's new ways of thinking, which I felt was particularly tiring. And I felt through every single day, it was important to be kind to yourself, even though I suppose I did walk away a few times judging myself, feeling that I wasn't maybe cut out for this. And then on reflection, I said all people are creative if they want to be, if they open up to it, because I think I was closed to it. If they're forced to be, they can be creative, or if they have motivation. But I think ultimately people can be creative if they want to be, and if they're open to it. It can happen. I think what have I learned and insights, that conflict can kill creativity, and that I can be creative, and that it's my right to be creative. I've kind of felt that I'd grown in confidence even after day one, because I think it was the fact that I was around other people that felt the same as me. And then I suppose being allowed to be creative, as I said, and I kind of, have had some fears. And when Kathleen was doing the mindfulness poem, I thought, well, this is great because I love this kind of thing, and I felt very comfortable volunteering for the mindfulness movement. So overall, on day one, I was really, really happy leaving. Absolutely exhausted. Knew that I had to learn how to speak up a bit more. When we were doing the buzz box, I did speak up, but when it comes to speaking in a group and presenting and pitching, I feel very uncomfortable about that. I did think with the buzz box, everybody was people pleasing because we were all new. We threw the kitchen sink at it. We had absolutely everything in our buzz box. So I think there's great learning in that. And it really brings it back to the whole empathy piece and the defining piece. I think if there was more of an issue to be solved, there might be more empathy for it, or I know it was just for fun. And the defining, definitely we didn't define what our phone was to be for. So we had too many users for the phone. So we needed to define our user. Going on to day 2, I kind of changed the format here, the mind mapping, so that I could actually read it a little bit better myself. So what is the meaning to me and the significance? So basically again in day 2, so if I look over what we did on day 2 was the team working piece. I think we did a prototyping piece as well. And then the blessing in disguise. So I think the 6 hats, I really like this. I actually wanted to make the hats. I felt like, and I might still do something like that. And this is a new theory to me, and I found it excellent. Because I had been introduced to Belbin and Tuckman before. And then for the significance is, I hope to introduce this in the work. In my work at team meetings, introduce it to others, actually maybe do the Belbin with my team. I have a small team of 6 people, so I think it's something that I could actually do. I think it helps identify the strengths of our team members. I think people can make assumptions about what others are good at, and if they're good at one thing, they get pigeonholed into that one thing, and some of their talents are wasted because they're not being given the time to express them, or they're just overlooked. So I think it might be nice to do that with my team, for me to get to know them more, and maybe for them to get to know themselves a little bit more as well. The mindful movement is very significant to me, that I got up and shared that with others, because I believe it's a great motivation for people, like physical motivation. Looking back, the phone box, we threw everything in the kitchen sink at it. So that was my reflection on the day before. And then happy, I had a gut feeling with the prototype of the marshmallow. I said to the team, we need to test this, but they didn't notice. So the learning from that for us, I need to believe in myself and explain assertively. And I think I have somewhat learnt those skills, but I need to obviously keep practicing that. So what more do I or the team need to know about this? So the 6 thinking hats, I need to know more about this, the white hat in particular, as I dislike this the most, kind of the info part and the data. My confidence increased in the planter creativeness. I think that's in reference to when Belbin, I got a nice score of 42% in the planter section, which I was happy with that. So, and then I think we need to be careful of throwing things in the kitchen sink. We're doing a little bit of people pleasing. Just realised that the body storming, empathy piece and journey mapping are forms of data collecting and information of the white hat. So I'm happy with that because I know I can do it. I've done it. I've proved it to myself. So what have I learnt? And the aha moments, I learnt that I can face my fears, look at it in the eye and respond to it creatively. I can do good things. The mindful movement, I shared my motivation techniques with others. It felt very good and people said that they liked it and that they would like to try it. I suppose politeness and people pleasing, the result was we threw everything in the kitchen sink. But the learning in that is that to know that when it's enough, and that it's also at the forming stage of a group, because we had just come together, total strangers, and it was really the forming, and we hadn't yet gotten into the storming side of it, and I don't think anybody wanted to. So that buzzbox is the result of our forming and norming and performing. We didn't do any storming. But this people-pleasing politeness, it disappeared, I suppose, by day 3 at the umbrella and the DAA part, because I think people felt their stakes were higher and they had to some kind of responsibility to do well for the DAA. And then because there was a little bit of storming in our group, but it was manageable. Happy I actually had a correct innate creative feeling to the prototyping. So yeah, basically what I'm saying there is that while I was doing the marshmallow thing, I'm happy that I actually felt to myself, hang on a minute, we need to test this out. Even I did say it wasn't heard, but sure, look, the fact is that I had that kind of thought, and now I know I can articulate it better. So just going on to day 3 again. So what does it mean to me and the significance? So on day 3, if I look back here, we were talking about the empathy piece. We had the hat for Irene, the body storming, the umbrella. We watched a video. There was PowerPoint presentations on the 5 stages of the design thinking. We did a pitch again for the poppy umbrella and that. So with the empathy piece, I suppose the significance is for me to actively listen and body storming for my students, for my staff and for myself. Excuse me. So yeah, I think the body storming is an excellent exercise of observation and the listening. You really actually have to pay attention to people, or actually pay attention to yourself, that you are still listening to somebody. I've learned that because I was having difficulties kind of mind wandering while people would be talking, or even while I was talking to others. So I felt the piece that we did with Irene and we were asking her questions, I thought that was absolutely excellent. So it was good in that we got to know Irene really, really well. And like, even if they said design a garden for us, for Irene, I think we would have been able to design a garden for her needs, for her wants, for her likes, for her user, for Irene. So yeah, I thought that was actually really good. I know if you knew what you were designing in mind, you might get more specific in, say, like if it was a garden, you'd be asking what type of plants do you like and stuff like that. But the overall, we didn't need to know all of that. The overall empathy piece was very strong, I felt, in that exercise. I've learned so much. It took days to process. I loved finding out about Irene, empathising with her, so easy to make a hat for her. Not knowing what we would be doing allowed the team to explore the boundaries and ask questions. Asking questions, I've learned I need to be clear and confident to get the information. Open questions and probing questions. I went out to ask this man about the umbrella, and he thought I was joking and just walked away. Basically, because my opening question was, do you use an umbrella, or what do you think? What are your feelings about using an umbrella? It wasn't great. I should have introduced myself first and explained I was doing a bit of creative innovating around it. So again, that's all learning. So what more do the team need to know about this? So resist the temptation to solve the issue first. Be aware of this. Okay, so jumping in with the umbrella piece, it was hard to define who our user was, but in the end we got there. Often you just think, yeah, I'm going to make an umbrella that'll suit that group of people, but really you do need to thrash it out more. Practice the empathy. So when I have here, bring empathy into work. So we do a thing called person-centered planning, and I'm only starting it in work, and as the name suggests, this is very person-centered, and I think it will bring out the empathy of my staff and myself when we're when we're working with my students who have disabilities. So I think that is one of the first things I'm going to do is ask students, do they want a person-centered plan, and create that. And I know there will be a lot of empathy received from that, and from there subsequently, if they have specific goals, I can help them define those goals. I can help them come up with ideas to get to actually implement the goals. I can test out whether that's going to work, and I can hopefully pitch it or put it into practice. So that's how I think I can put the design thinking into place in work. I have here the empathy defines the point of view statement. So empathy works very happy customer or person. Preparation for user journey map is important. And if I look at this, so what have I learned? The insights, the aha moments. I've learned the empathy piece is vitally important in the design thinking process. It makes the statement, or it makes a statement at the point of view statement. You have to say something. I think with the empathy piece, it brings out that you have something to say. Empathy allows for this. So I think that's really important. I've learned to hold off on coming up with solutions until you have been through the empathy stage, which reveals the beginning of the magic. So day 4. So there's a lot happening on day 4. So I'll just read through it. Again, I think I switched to more of my mind mapping here again. So what have I learnt and the insights? I can learn a lot just by looking, body storming in DAA, observing. I definitely felt the neuroplasticity of my own brain was definitely changing. I was so tired when I got home, using new parts of my brain. So as I said, I was very, very tired, very nervous at pitching, using my voice or words, sounding convincing. That's something I need to work on. I noticed about myself. If the solution was not useful, then it can be iterated again, helping keeping some useful elements. And that was in relation to, just because we went through the 5 stages of design thinking and came up with an idea or a solution, doesn't mean that it'll be accepted, and that it's an iterative process, and it kind of overlaps and things are repeated. Learned very important to include everyone in the pitch. I learned from other students how to assertively stand up for themselves. So just in the heat of the hunt in the DAA, when we were waiting for pitching things, people were things weren't fully defined, I suppose, and people were still changing their mind on things, and one person was asked not to stand up, and I had to relay that message to them, and I said it, and then they said, actually no, that's not fair, I've taken part in all of this and I am going to stand up. And I said, yeah, absolutely fine. Again, I felt like a bit of a messenger, but relayed it back to the other person. I said, no, such and such wants to be involved in this, and that's what they're doing. So there was, again, a little bit of storming there, you know, but I learned from that person that she assertively stood up for herself and said, no, I want to be part of this. So I thought that was really good. So if I go back here to, so what is the meaning and significance of this for me? I said it again, I was just saying how tired I was, body storming and journey mapping. I must be using new parts of my brain. I found it nearly impossible to communicate information to the group when I returned to from the DAA. I took a rest and I had food, and then I felt a lot better. Sudden feeling of being held accountable for the job I got. So I was one of them people that went behind. And when I got into the jury building, all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, I actually have to relay all this information back to them, and took me a while, and I felt out of my comfort zone, but I got there in the end. Went through the 5 stages of design thinking. The process was getting inquiring, repeated flow, and I knew what I was doing. So the process was getting ingrained, and it was being repeated, and I was getting in the flow, and I knew what I was doing. Also up here, I noticed I needed to pay conscious attention to what people are saying to me, as I can get lost in my own thoughts, and this means that I'm not listening. And I spoke about that earlier on. So that's just an awareness and a technique that I think I will ask others for help with, to be honest, and look it up and see how I can do that better. So what have I learnt? So very nervous at pitching using my voice. I think I said that already. I can learn a lot just by looking. Learned very important to include others, said that. Learned I am good at group coordination. A lot of voices at once needed to be coordinated. Enjoyed the voting and defining, sorting ideas into sections. I saw how other team members handled the pitch section with confidence. Really an amazing gift to have. I learnt that I need, in relation to that, I think that's maybe something that will come with time for me. And I really feel like I have to do my homework. I have to have my white hat on to feel confident to stand up, because I think to have all the facts and figures and the data correct, I would be confident then in standing up, as well as the other 5 hats as well. I've learned that I need to learn to consciously listen, actually practice listening, as it will build my confidence when pitching ideas. And then if we, the defined stage, found the defined stage of the process, I suppose, more difficult, need more practice at this, difficult to narrow down. So what more do the team need to know about this? So need to build confidence during the pitching stage. I don't mind acting or doing movements, but I don't like using words or talking and believing. So believing, you have to believe the idea to be convincing to others without making me feel sick. So that's really the reflection I have on day 4. Day 5, if we have a look at this. So what is the meaning and significance for me or the team? The significance for me on day 5 was that there are opportunities for creativity everywhere. Newspaper slogans, making objects, empathizing with people can all lead to creative opportunities. The insight of the assignment being so open is, the significance of the assignment being so open is extremely useful for me. So writing is not my top strength. So not having to hand in an assignment or essay or do an exam is brilliant. It is the first time I have been given such a broad scope of assessment. It's new to me and I am grateful for that. Yeah, so that's just the piece I read out there. So yeah, I'm not great at, I think it's a tough way to assess a person. It doesn't encompass all the learning, as in assignments and essays are a tough way, especially assignments, because they have too many constraining guidelines to them. I think this is a fabulous way of assessing somebody's learning. It's so open, it's so broad, and I just thought that it's more liberating, and I think maybe the content that you receive, hopefully it'll be more enlightening and rich. So what have I learned? The insights and the aha moments. So I'm going to read this. It's like kind of like a poem, but oops, I hope that's all right. So ideas people used to really annoy me. All ideas up in the air, half completed, poorly communicated. I've learned to enjoy this, to embrace this because of that belief. I think I limited my own creativity, stopped myself, closed myself off from being creative or allowing myself to imagine, to dream, to enjoy making and have the courage to be creative. Sadly, I have been closed to allowing ideas possess me until now. So that's kind of a flow of consciousness that I wrote there, because that's my honest reflective piece on it at the time. So I'll move on anyway to, so what more do the team need to know about this? So day 5 was, there was a group reflection on the 5 stages of the design thinking. I wanted to know more about the 6 thinking hats, to introduce this to my team and work, and to see to see that, to see if it can be effective, I can see it being effective. So I have the now what. So I did 1 page on the now what, which I will do my best to read out to you. And so here we are now. So being creative, so apply lessons learned, insights gained to new situations. So being creative is easier than I thought. Creativity has a process and it works. It's important to know your team style and to recognize others. This can be harder to do. So asking them what their style is, or maybe advising them to do the Belbin assessment. Follow each design phase wide and narrow until you have hit the target. Testing at prototype staging is essential. Complete strangers can come together over 5 days and come up with some very good solutions to issues once there was an understanding of the team dynamics and the 5 stages of design thinking. And then, what would the team, do differently next time? So be easier on myself. I was so tired. Next time I will stop and think about how I can creatively solve problems or stroke issues that come up using the 5 stages of design thinking. I've often just jumped to the first solution that comes to mind, first idea, or agreed to the first opinion I hear. This process has taught there can be other ideas or solutions to the issues we have in work. I think I can bring this 5 stages of design thinking into work for our administrative system, getting information flowing better between myself and my students and my staff. And then also as well, I think I can introduce, as I said, advocate more for the personal centered planning, to get to know my students, to empathize with my students, and to literally work through the design process with them. What are the key points to share with your colleagues? I'll be encouraging them to go on to do the course, because I thought it was very good at changing up your thinking, getting out of your comfort zone, freeing up one's mind to think differently. I'll be sharing the 5 stages of design thinking with the team, so you can see them there. And then I think I could take or give the team and myself a simple challenge, like the newspaper challenge, to try to explain the design thinking concept as a start, or maybe just give them some Lego to start with until I build up my confidence. So that's everything. That is my reflection piece. I hope you have enjoyed it, and I certainly have really enjoyed my time on the course. I'm planning to send you email the videos to you, and if you need anything else, if you please get back to me, that'll be absolutely great. And thank you so much for all your creative facilitation and your understanding, and it was absolutely magic. Thank you. Bye bye.